I will start the timer as soon as the team starts this presentation. Feel free to go.
I'm going to share my screen now. Hello, everyone. We are Modern Solutions Consulting Group, and you are the Board of Directors of ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. Okay. These are my team members: Michael Marichal, our legal advisor; Ashley Pond, our financial advisor; Esteban Molina, our ethical advisor; and Aaliyah Dochao, another general consultant. I am Verity Pond, general consultant as well. Thank you for taking the time to view our presentation. Objectives. Now, our objectives are to discuss the main ethical problem with TikTok and go over the legal, financial, and ethical implications. We will also go over our ethical points in more detail. Now, to start, TikTok's mission is to inspire creativity and create joy. This is the beginning of TikTok's community guidelines, and here we have some other quotes from the beginning of their community guidelines. These show TikTok's values, and they're something to remember. And we know that as a company, this is what TikTok strives for, and it contains other information about the company as well that is important to the legal, ethical, and financial dimensions of our company. So, to start off, an introduction to TikTok. TikTok is a popular social media platform, particularly among teens, that allows users to create and upload short videos for others to view. Now, ethical issues. Our main ethical problem is that our company has an unclear and lacking policy, and we must strike a balance between content moderation and free speech, between what the users can post and what they're allowed to post ethically. Now, this has created ethical issues as well as displeased users. And if a user has a problem, they may not be able to find an answer because of the lack of clarity in the content moderation policy. Now, as with legal issues, there is no appeal process right now. So users cannot appeal, and there are content reviewers which view the content which could be considered flagged or unethical, and it's their job to decide whether or not it's allowed on the platform. Now, we also would like to discuss in further detail the content reviewer's mental health and the implications of that. Now, here's an example of something that is a different content. Well, it's a different platform which has a different policy from TikTok. Now, this would be Twitter, and it's an example that we are going to compare to TikTok. Now, here's an example of the Twitter rules, which is clearly laid out and has different categories and subcategories with different headings that clearly represent what Twitter wants for its users. Now, here is the community guidelines of TikTok, which is a simple layout that has paragraphs, which do have subheadings, but they are mostly just paragraphs and do not go into a lot of detail. Now, this causes problems as well, such as displeased users, which leads to displeased shareholders and marketers. Now, to introduce our solution, again, we want to create a more balanced and clear content moderation policy. And in order to remedy the problem of the different groups being shadow banned and other problems that involve people, we want to consult all groups involved with these problems before making a decision so that we know that it's what's right for them and not just what we as a company or you as a company think is right for them. Now, our solution is legally, ethically, and financially sound, and these slides coming will discuss exactly why.
To begin with, your company needs clear policies. You should use a diverse group of stakeholders to help you clearly define the aspects of your policies. When compared to Twitter's policies, TikTok's are very vague and unclear. You could make your policies easier to read or even create videos that explain the policies in a more direct way. Working on these policies will help your company not only ethically, but also legally and financially. Our overall solution to make TikTok a more ethical company starts by creating a more context-specific content moderation policy. This policy will help users understand more about what they are agreeing to when downloading and using your app. It'll also help to block sexual content and hate speech instead of shadow banning the individual groups that may be targeted by cyber aggression. The practice will also help by using AI and a committee to identify the context in which some slurs and phrases are used. This practice will provide users with an alert showing what they did wrong and would provide users with a way to combat those claims of wrongdoing. Along with the increased content moderation, you should increase the content moderators' access to the proper mental health facilities. Many content moderators are strongly affected by the content they are exposed to and suffer from PTSD after seeing the content regularly. More access to mental health facilities will help the content moderators. The second part of our solution is the Santa Clara principles. By following the Santa Clara principles, users' trust will increase and the policies will help the company ethically. The Santa Clara principles are 1, publishing the numbers that show how many posts are being blocked and the number of accounts being temporarily or permanently removed. Also, providing a notice to those who have their accounts taken down and providing users with a reasonable amount of time to take down the content that was made and will be blocked. All of these principles will help users be more aware of how and why they are being blocked and give your company more transparency. Your company needs to increase their credibility with advertisers to gain more money. Improving the credibility and safety of your company will make it so that advertisers want to invest in your company. Having better policies in place will encourage advertisers to advertise their product and invest in TikTok. It'll give your company a better image to not only advertisers, but also consumers. Overall, creating clear policies will be very effective in making TikTok's actions more transparent and ultimately have a positive effect on your company. Now to our legal analyst, Michael, who will dive deeper into the legal aspects of our case.
As aforementioned, my name is Michael Marichal, and I will be examining the legal lens, focusing on why our solution is legally sound and how it will allow your company to avoid some of the legal problems that will arise if content moderation is not amended. Now, you might be rightfully asking yourself, what are the legal risks of following our comprehensive plan? After careful review, we have found that there are no such legal risks in following our steps. This is due in large part to the Communications Decency Act, which was enacted in 1966 and served as the first notable attempt by the US Congress to regulate pornographic material on the internet. Now, you may be wondering now how this relates to your case and our proposed solution, and that's where Section 230 comes into play. The CDA introduced a wide range of legislation, perhaps none more impactful than Section 230, which contains two main provisions. The first one, which you can see displayed on this slide, establishes the difference between those who directly publish media and the entities that simply serve as platforms to diffuse said media, such as your platform. Now, what does this mean? This simply means that this provision gives your platform limited liability for the content that is published on its forum. Meanwhile, here we have the second provision. This one deals more with the content moderation policies of platforms such as yours. This provision notably creates a lot of leeway for what social media platforms or media distributors can censor or moderate, as long as some sense of good faith is coming into play. The second provision is more relevant to our case since it will be the main reason why your company can safely implement our plan, as it actually serves to encourage you to continue trying to amend your content moderation policies without any harsh punishment. Moreover, our plan revolves around your company meeting and exceeding existing laws in order to remediate some of the tension that your company has built with countries outside of the US. By adhering to a country's legislation, your company can avoid incurring more fines and negative publicity, as well as avoiding the repealing of any protected legislation. Likewise, with your company actually taking an extra step forward, it will actually further decrease this risk, as well as lead to further benefits such as a healthier community, more community involvement, and also increased transparency that will better engage stakeholders. However, these situations only occur if you are following our plan. If your company continues on its current path, it is sure to encounter legal issues along the way. For one, if our plan isn't implemented, TikTok will continue to incur fines and be susceptible to lawsuits and demands. Your company has already faced a US probe, a government national security probe, over concerns about data storage and what you guys were doing with the data of users. Furthermore, your company is known to have paid the largest fine in FTC history, with $5.7 million because of illegally storing minors' data on your application without their parents' consent. Additionally, while Section 230 does protect you in the United States, in other countries outside of the US, you are still susceptible to lawsuits. And these can happen if users and individuals are not happy with what they find on the app. Furthermore, individuals aren't the only risk, as nations can take the additional step and actually ban the app on a national scale. Even then, there is a greater risk that Section 230, the thing that's currently protecting platforms like yours in the US, could be repealed, leaving the company defenseless against these aforementioned lawsuits. This movement has gained traction, especially with Republican Senator Josh Hawley, proposing a bill that would remove immunity that protects tech companies such as Facebook, Twitter, and yours, of course, from liability for user-posted content, unless these companies prove to the FTC that their content moderation is politically neutral. So now I would like to pass it on to my partner, Ashley Pond, who will delve more into the financial implications of TikTok's current situations, as well as why our solution is financially sound.
TikTok is a profitable company. You make plenty of profits as is, so why not play it safe and keep what works? There are a couple of reasons. Firstly, you could be making much more money safely, and secondly, your company could fail sometime in the future if you don't make significant changes to your policies. Your company is currently lacking financially in terms of policies. It could do much better and could easily increase the amount of ad revenue and overall profits by enacting our better solution. Loss of advertisers is a serious issue TikTok is currently facing. The less users, the less advertisers want to invest, and that hurts profits. Advertisers also judge based on the credibility of a company and how safe the content is. So with controversial content removal, less advertisers will want to invest, missing out on large profits. Potential lawsuits are an issue as well. With the current policies, you could get sued more often than with no guidelines at all. People become more likely to sue when they are oppressed and censored as opposed to when they are offended or bullied. While getting sued is a risk, even with this change, it is more of a risk to have your current policies stay due to the negative reactions from the community. Stakeholder theory is an important concept in business. It is a method of business that moves to make everyone involved in a financial exchange satisfied, which results in more profit. Maintaining a good relationship with your customers is important. With more restrictive policies, people are less likely to spend more time on the app and could stop using it altogether, decreasing revenue. People are more likely to sue when they dislike the company and their policies, and this could even lose you more money. Making sure your company's image remains sound is even more important financially than in any other department, as all of a social media's profits come from social interaction, which comes from people who think well about your company. When people enjoy the app and what it stands for, they share it, they socialize, and more users join. This cumulative effect means you're losing infinite potential users just by having an imperfect image. Users that would make you the uncontested top social media app and quite a bit more profit. As opposed to another solution that may cost a lot of money, our solution is mostly virtual, so it has total positive net gain. There are some aspects of your company that need fixing that will take more than just a policy change, but the costs are overshown by the profits. People may even see you dedicating time and resources into bettering your company as a selfless act and improve general opinions of TikTok. The things that you would need to do that are virtual include tone down the banning of users, make the rules, guidelines, and policies more comprehensive, and consult everyone involved in financial exchange before making decisions. Also, the more freedom people have, the more they get exposed to other people, the more likely they'll be to file less lawsuits over time as they get used to their newfound freedom. The implementation of a policy fixing solution would be incredibly financially beneficial. It would cost nearly nothing, improve the company's image, increase ad revenue, and reduce potential lawsuits, which all in turn increase overall profit. Next up is Esteban with the ethics portion of our presentation.
Now, moreover, as your ethical advisor, we will now delve into the actual ethics of your case. Next slide, please. So first, we would like to frame our ethical solution through the lens of Santa Clara principles. Now, these are presented by Santa Clara University, based in Santa Clara, California. And so these principles are usually utilized by here in the United States to Australia, including the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California, the Center for Democracy and Technology, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and the New America's Open Technology Institute. Now, what do these organizations, advocacy groups, and academic experts all over the world value in common? The right to free expression online, while at the same time maintaining transparency and accountability for social media platforms. And so now we will discuss the following components: numbers, notice, and finally, appeal. So according to the principles, it states that companies should publish the numbers of posts that are being removed and accounts permanently or temporarily suspended due to violations of their content guidelines. Therefore, our solution be proposed that your platform should publish the number of videos and overall accounts on TikTok being flagged, suspended, and removed. Now, a similar situation has been brought up in recent years with the YouTube controversy, in which various YouTubers have accused YouTube of demonetizing their videos and even shadow banning their content. Now, shadow banning, of course, is defined as to block the publication of posts by a user without his or her knowledge. And this has been the case with YouTube, and it has certainly been the case more recently with TikTok. I will sort of speak one. Secondly, we have the notice section, in which it states that companies should provide notice to each user whose content is taken down or account is suspended about the reason for the removal or suspension. Our solution being proposed is that your platform should specifically point out which specific community guideline has been violated and to provide a clear and distinct warning. Now, this would include the specific TikTok user and their posts, any type of comment, or any form of gesture that may be perceived as hateful. Now, why is this important? It's due to the fact that this notice section will provide true transparency to your users, due to the fact that with various other social media platforms such as YouTube and Twitter, claiming that their own platforms are not being transparent enough, once your platform will give a clear and concise warning to these users, they will way less likely to repeat such hateful effects again. And finally, we have our appeal section, which states that companies should provide a meaningful opportunity for timely appeal of any content removal or account suspension. Therefore, we would propose two solutions in this case. One would be a nonpartisan review committee, as well as a human explanation to the TikToker for a given notice. Now, similar to the YouTube situation has been the case with Twitter, in which various Twitter users and even YouTube users alike have claimed that their platforms have outright banned their accounts or temporarily suspended their accounts due to the fact that based on the basis of political biases, religious biases, etc. Therefore, our company would propose a solution that there should be a nonpartisan review committee in order to greatly minimize the system of biases that goes on within the platform in order to ensure that there are no posts and accounts being taken down on the basis of any form of biases. Secondly, we provide a human explanation to the TikToker. Now, of course, in other similar platforms, Twitter users and YouTubers have stated that after they tried to file for an appeals process, they are given a, quite frankly, vague explanation by form of artificial intelligence, and they would much rather be satisfied with a human explanation for the notice. And surely, TikTok users would appreciate the same. Furthermore, we are now going to delve into the solution component involving content moderation. Our group would propose a context-specific content moderation with a combination of artificial intelligence and human review. Now, to be frank, we have researched and found ultimately that your platform has had no such context-specific review process that has been as nearly as comprehensive as it could be. Now, for instance, sexually explicit content we propose should be closely detected and punished to the exact same standard as hate speech with AI based on word identification and certain slurs. Now, an example of this would be that let's say a user uses a certain slur, such as the letters DYKE in a TikTok video or a comment. Of course, a red alert would be highlighted by the AI. However, what if this user was part of a marginalized group such as the LGBTQ community? In this case, we would propose that the entire context should be highlighted and sent from the AI to a human review subcommittee. Now, of course, your committee would then take into account factors such as the nature of the word, whether the intent of using such slur was used as a form of hate, or rather, this member of such marginalized group is using it as a form of empowerment rather than hate, in order to help minimize the discrimination that these marginalized users may face, as well as the user themselves. Now, more interestingly, we propose that there ought to be an investment in mental health of moderators. Now, now that you have human reviewers, you must acknowledge and recognize to yourselves that you must treat your human workers with dignity, as human moderation is, of course, as you can see through these distressing and outright disturbing headlines, is no easy task. As you can see here, has been a similar situation with Facebook and YouTube, etc. Therefore, our team would recommend an investment in mental health resources through the forms of therapy sessions and medication through psychiatry. Now, these human moderators truly do deserve the help they need after doing gory and violent content all day, every day on these TikTok videos, just to ensure the common good that the TikTok community remains a safe and creative community to express its creativity. And finally, we have why the ethics truly matter. Now, of course, this provides equal protection to your stakeholders. This provides equal protection to those below 18, as well as to marginalized groups, both of which are your consumers. Now, not only are adolescents part of your base, but marginalized adolescents part of your base. Now, marginalized groups, as we all know, have suffered various forms of discrimination in recent decades, and they already suffer enough discrimination as it is in the real world. Therefore, the last thing they need is harassment in the digital world. And so now we have a brief overview of our case, the question was, how does our solution plan to resolve your company striking the balance between allowing free speech and protecting users from objectionable or harmful content? So, to put together as a whole, we have created a solution for your company that is financially, legally, and ethically sound. Financially, your company could easily make more profit by enacting a better solution, which would decrease the chances of lawsuits, increase the amount of advertising credibility, and would cost very little. Legally, our plan is being protected by CDA Section 230, and looking to meet and exceed plans, we heavily advise your company to follow our comprehensive plan, or unfortunately risk facing further legal troubles such as the potential repealing of protected legislation or lawsuits and fines. Last but not least, ethically, we propose a context-specific content moderation with a mixture of artificial intelligence and human review, as well as an investment into your human content moderators. We are Modern Solutions Consulting Group, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That was exactly 25 minutes. So your timing was excellent. Speaking as a member of the board, I'm just a little bit cynical here, so forgive me. I just don't understand what this mental health problem is for the content moderators. Sounds a little fishy to me. Explain it.
Well, of course, the mental distress and trauma that these workers may encounter has, of course, delved into effects of the overall efficiency of the company. So, just in case the moral case for why these human moderators deserve such treatment after seeing gory and violent content all day, if the moral case for investing wasn't enough, the efficiency case is proposed, in which if a content moderator were to be traumatized due to doing content all day, and of course you're traumatized, unhappy, depressed, and anxious, this would in turn lead to an unhappy worker becoming an inefficient worker, which would only greatly drastically increase the profit.
Can't you just cut their hours?
No, because due to the fact that there's various amount of content that is being moderated day by day, minute by minute even, and therefore these moderators are still essential for as much time as we could have them. However, they do deserve treatment in order so that they can do the best amount of job, as well as while at the same time maintaining a healthy mindset ultimately.
Okay. Some other judges, Bobby?
Yeah, thank you for that and taking the time to give us your feedback. I happen to agree that we ought to subscribe to the Santa Clara principles and disclose that information. Can you hear me? You okay? Okay. I guess my question is, I think our community standards, I looked at them. I thought they're way more specific, frankly, than most other social media type companies like YouTube and others. And I'm curious why you think they aren't specific enough, or what it is that we serve to gain by changing them, because I've read through them and it goes on for pages and pages and has examples of everything. And so I'm kind of surprised to hear you say you think that our community standards aren't what we need. Help me with that.
Well, that's a great question. More interestingly, there have been various cases. For instance, the pro-life anti-abortion group Live Action, for instance, had been a few months back been previously banned outright banning, and due to various days of backlash, that that account was later instated, and of course TikTok cited a human error, and this, of course, evidently this is not the only case that has been seen, and this would prove that the appeals process has not been clear enough, and there's definitely evidently a form of political biases. So that is one instance of how your community guidelines are just not clear enough.
Well, I guess that sounds to me more like it was an issue of maybe us under-resourcing, potentially, maybe not having enough, whatever they're called, content moderators, rather, or the investment in AI rather than our policies. I mean, policies are only as good as the people that can help implement and enforce them. But anyway, thank you.
May I follow up on that question, please? Also to Esteban, and also all to you, all of you, thank you. But I guess following on Bobby's question, I was not clear on what the exact ethical issue was here, because I agree that I thought the policy was, there was a policy. So what is the ethical issue that we need to be considering here?
The issue is striking a balance between censorship of certain groups, between maintaining a free expression for everybody on the platform, while at the same time maintaining protections for certain groups from hateful and inappropriate content. Now, what we have proposed in the instance of how there has been unfair censorship of certain groups, we have proposed a concise process, clear process in which these groups, there should be less censorship, while at the same time maintaining a sense of, with our implementation of a review subcommittee, there is further review to make sure that what certain users have posted is truly hateful, or rather it is a form of biases due to, because there have been various allegations, not just on TikTok, that there has been a sense of unfair censorship. So that is how we propose to balance that.
It just sounded to me it was more of a legal issue that we were looking at here, of balancing interests, as opposed to that whether or not the company was acting ethically or not ethically. I didn't get a sense that you were saying that there was an ethical issue that we needed to address. We just needed to firm up our policy to make sure it was legally sound. Is that what you're?
Well, part of that certainly is the case. However, the facts are that this, of course, affects various different groups of people, such as marginalized groups. And if a member of the LGBTQ community, as we have pointed out, is being unrightfully censored because in certain guidelines it states that they should not, that no user should use certain slurs of any form, offending homophobia or any form of offense. What if this user is using it as a form of empowerment to make themselves feel better? This affects this marginalized group, and that is a great ethical dilemma due to the fact that, as we stated, it just leads on to the further discrimination of these already marginalized groups. So that is just an example of one stakeholder that's being.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I had a question about the Santa Clara principles. I agreed with the appeal and the notice, but the numbers were an issue for, I think, TikTok, because won't we open ourselves up to more criticism if we publish the numbers of flagged content in a way that YouTube and Facebook and Twitter don't disclose that information? So what benefit is there to very transparently putting up numbers if we will just have to explain ourselves and then fall into that cycle of having, you know, a revolving standard of what fits into the guidelines?
Right, so this just further leads into the overall ethical qualm of transparency. And once we are able to publish such numbers of TikTok users and accounts that are being banned, suspended, this provides greater transparency to all users on TikTok. And for instance, once they provide transparency not only on the number of videos, but the nature of such videos, in order so that certain TikTok users may post something that seems a bit ethically iffy, may draw the line a bit between offensive and inoffensive, they're less likely to commit a future offense once they see that another user has posted something similar and they have been suspended for their best interest to not.
Have our competitors, have other social media companies like YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, whatever, have they ascribed to the Santa Clara principles? And if not, why not? I assume this is a voluntary set of principles that you sign up for. Is that how it works?
Okay.
Yeah.
That is an excellent question. So to our knowledge, they have not followed these principles to the extent that they are, to the extent that we would certainly like them to. Now, this is especially the case in the last section, being the appeals process, because as we stated, various YouTubers and Twitter users and other users, once they get suspended or banned, it's very hard, this appeals process, and as well as the fact that once they do attempt to appeal and ask the platform, hey, why have you banned me or suspended me, they're given a very vague artificial response answer. So there should be a more clear appeals process, and we would propose a human explanation in order so that each user has a fair understanding of why they were punished.
So are you asking us as the board of directors to take an ethical initiative that our competitors would not take?
We would certainly be the forefront of it with our platform, and it's in their prerogative to do the same. But when it comes to ensuring that TikTok remains a safe and creative community, we would strongly advise that certain principles that maintain transparency to its users is strongly advised.
And if I
Risky?
may add to what Esteban said, TikTok is still practically a new company. It's emerged a while back. So now it's receiving all this negative publicity. It's seen as this villain that shadow bans and censors these people for their disabilities. So through this becoming more transparent and taking the forefront to be open about their practices, they won't be really seen as they're the villain anymore. They'll be seen as, oh, they trust us with this information. And not only that, but they would engage the stakeholders better and just let them know what the company is doing and why they're doing so.
You think that would be a competitive advantage?
Yeah, for sure. TikTok taking the forefront, kind of like how Twitter has taken the forefront with dealing with misinformation and becoming kind of popular for the tools that they've built to target that problem. I feel like it could actually boost the current ethical standing that TikTok currently finds itself in.
And this would greatly contribute to overall positive reputation for TikTok as being known by its users as a platform that is transparent and ethical to its users and fair to its users, which makes a competitive advantage in that these other platforms certainly don't have that. So might as well post their content on TikTok.
Ashley, you said that you thought we were losing maybe advertisers' business because we don't have the specific policies we need and the enforcement in a way that is truly first class. How do we know that? Because it seems to me the appeal of what we've created in this wonderful company is we've made it really easy for people to create these little videos, and they're fun. And the more that we make it easy and we monitor in an appropriate way, as you guys suggest, the more users we have, the more advertisers are going to give us money. So what makes you think we're not capitalizing on that now? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, you do have plenty of advertisers because lots of advertisers just look for the most people on a platform. But a lot of advertisers want to look for the correct image for their product. They don't want to put their product on a company that's labeled as negative or bad or the villain. So even though you do have a lot of advertisers currently, you could gain a lot more potential advertisers by improving your policies.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Could you say a little bit more about this shadow banning phenomenon? I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Right, so shadow banning is defined as a website administrator blocking the publication of posts by the user of a site without his or her knowledge. Now, this issue, of course, isn't new to TikTok. It's been evident in other social media platforms. And with this being put into place, it's basically the epitome of censorship for any social media platform user, including Twitter, Facebook, etc. So this is a great issue that ought to be taken care of, as it plays into the overall part of how should TikTok find the balance between free speech and censorship.
So if I may follow up on that, in the deciding what is blocked, are there guidelines that are used to determine what is appropriate and what is not appropriate? How is that decided? And who decides that now? Is that all artificial intelligence is that all AI now that's making that determination based on terms, or how is that being done right now?
Well, at the current moment, it is evidently artificial intelligence and a mix of human review. However, whether that human review is non-biased or whether it is non-biased is a separate question, which we propose for it to be a non-biased group due to, as we mentioned, various groups being banned because of political posts, religious posts, etc. Now, of course, the community guidelines state there ought to be no form of hate. However, the fact of the matter is that we as humans all have our own implicit biases. However, if there were to be try our best to have, the Democrats and Republicans coming together as a form of one review board to ensure that no political posts, for example, are being unrightfully censored unless there is a clear consensus that it is actually inciting hatred, would be really important.
I guess I had a follow-up question to that, just within the committee of who will be reviewing it, the content moderators. I mean, the initial question is, are we really going to be willing to expose the identity of our content moderators in order to ensure that we are being nonpartisan? Like, that to me seems like a liability against the people that we employ. How can we prove that we are being non-biased, nonpartisan without giving too much information? And I think that's the problem I keep finding, that at every part of the solution, I just worry about making us so transparent that we're just open to more liability, more criticism, and we're not protecting our company.
Thank you for asking. That's a great question. And the thing is that names don't necessarily need to be released. We can focus more on just releasing the demographics of these content moderators and see where they fall under. So if we display that there's a lot of diversity and variety with our content moderations, not only politically, but also, let's say we have a lot of women too, not just male moderators, or not only white Caucasian males, but also Hispanics, African Americans. Just by showing that type of diversity, we ensure that, that it's non-biased, and not only that, but we'll build more trust with our stakeholders and our user base, because they'll know that it's not just this robot or this specific group of people that only work for the company and just want profit, but a diverse set of people that look at the issue at hand and will work together to kind of moderate the content on the platform.
Thank you.
Do you think we have enough content moderators? And do they have the right training and the right composition? I know you talked about their mental health, because I'm sure they see some upsetting things they wish they didn't see, and then have to go through the steps of recommending the content be pulled and all those kinds of things. But it seems to me, my personal belief is that our policy is not an issue, that our community standards are pretty darn specific. And having been a person that worked in rules and standards for many years, it doesn't matter how specific you get, you're always going to get people that are looking for the angle to get in. And so I think we've given a nice balance of the topics and examples. And then it's about how do we, in my mind, how we enforce it. So I guess, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the composition of our content moderating task force, workforce, and whether you feel like they're properly prepared and we have enough of them. And if not, how much will it cost us to fix that?
Well, you could first speak for the fact that, of course, a happy worker is an efficient worker. So we should definitely look at the angles of the fact that the wages of them aren't as high as they could be, as well as bad work conditions, and how, frankly, it's not a very popular job to have. I mean, who would anybody in this room would like to see Corey content all day, every day, just for the sake? Although it is a noble cause, not many of us are up for the task. So in terms of benefiting the employee, these are different factors to take into account. And of course, there should be proper training. However, mental state, of course, comes first, because without a proper sense of a clear head, it would just be inefficient in the work all the way through.
I think our time for role play is over. In fact, we came full circle in a way, because the last question related to my rather cynical first question about poor content moderators and the tough job that they must have, and whether or not we have enough of them to take PTSD out of the system. Thank you for your presentation. There was a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work went into that, and now we're going to step out of our roles as members of the TikTok board of directors and enter our roles as judges and coaches to your team, and make comments about your presentation, and possibly comments about your presentations going forward in the 10-minute and 90-second. But first of all, just comments about your presentation as you delivered it in the 25 minutes. And I'll kick it off with just one concern. I thought that your slides were well done, but I was concerned about definitions of terms. There was a number of places where I thought it would have been a little more helpful to the viewer of your presentation to understand what shadow banning was, for example, and what content moderation meant. I mean, those terms are terms of art within the industry. I understand that. But to someone who's not initiated into that terminology, it would be useful to bring it to the fore. I would have liked to have heard a few more examples. In fact, I didn't hear very many examples at all throughout the presentation of things that were that needed to be kept out or needed to be left alone and not messed with. Something that would give the listener a chance to hook his or her imagination into the process. I realized that the community standards gets explicit about all those things, but the presentation didn't get explicit about those things. And it would have been nice if the listener to the presentation could have said, "Oh, I see what you mean. You don't want to moderate that out of the picture. That's just free speech." Mm-hmm. Or, "Oh, I see what you mean. That's got to go. That's not acceptable. That's going to undermine the mission of our company." So there was lack of what some people might call color in the presentation, in my opinion. I hope that doesn't sound too negative, but I was thirsty for a little bit more color. Maybe my fellow judges can contribute now.
Well, I'll just follow up on that. That's why I asked that question about what the standards were, because even though they're in the policy, I think I would like to have a little bit more discussion about what those content moderators look at to get a little bit more specific about that, because it went over kind of quickly. I thought, first off, kudos to all of you for doing this. You did a great job. Doing this by Zoom is not easy. I feel like we all live on Zoom. You've probably been living on Zoom doing this too. So kudos to all of you for getting this far, because you did a really great job. So these are just really comments to kind of help you a little bit. I have a slightly different view about using slides. I felt sometimes the slides were a little dense. You had a lot of information there. And in my desire to look at the slides, I felt like maybe I wasn't listening as well. So I had to really focus on listening, and then I couldn't see the slides. So it was a little bit of a balance there. You had a thing with a circle with all these things on, which I was trying to read and understand, but then when I was trying to do that, I couldn't listen. So sometimes I think you need to figure out what it is you're trying to convey by using pictures and what you're trying to do. You wanted to complement what you're saying and not be a distraction where people have to put their thoughts on something else and they can't focus on that. So nothing for to be changed for tomorrow, but something to keep in mind going forward. That slide should really be helping you accentuate your main points and shouldn't be distracting you someplace else. But I think under these circumstances, you all did a great job, and kudos for getting this far. So best to you tomorrow.
What else do you want to go? You want me to go?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Definitely congratulations on getting this far. I was in this competition 3 years ago and had a great time. And you all, the slides I thought were very well put together, as in you guys did a good job designing it. There was a lot of information, and definitely if you had just used examples, which tomorrow I know that Ken had touched on this, if you want to use something like nudity as opposed to what kind of slur you were talking about, or the Democratic versus Republican, like advertising, like what's considered, you know, inappropriate versus what is free speech, having like 5 examples, however many you pick, that's going to definitely like add that color that Ken was talking about, because that's exactly when, if you bring an example, the judges are like, oh, that is what you're talking about. I could see how if I were a content moderator and I saw something with nudity, I could easily shut it down. Or even explaining those examples, I would have better understood if your stance was that TikTok was restricting too much or too little, which in the beginning, I didn't know which way we were going. I didn't know if we were trying to protect TikTok from being sued by restricting more, which is what the financial made me think, and the legal. But then when we got to the ethical, it made me think we were restricting too much because people were being shut down as minorities. So I was like, which category is more important for you as a consulting group to present to the board of directors? So tomorrow, if you make that just a little bit more clear, I know that you had mentioned the word balance, so obviously you can't pick a side if you're striking for balance, but I think examples could do that. If you say like, this is an extreme, but this is something that would be more of a balanced approach that we should have a little bit more expertise on with our content moderators. So definitely all of my opinions now are just for like what you can make better tomorrow, because I had a great time learning about TikTok today.
Nice. I'll try and be brief. Kudos, you guys. You were well coordinated. Your roles were clear. You handed off nicely. You were prepared with your speaking, and I thought the slides were good. I agree in a couple places. The legal slide, well, I'm an accountant by training. I got a little lost on a lot of words, but I don't necessarily agree with all my colleagues about the terms of art and knowledge, because as the board of directors of TikTok, we should know those things, even though in this particular context we don't. So it's a little artificial in this case environment to just, if you were assuming we as board members would know those things, I think that was a fair assumption. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Overall, I guess my overriding thing, and some people have said this in pieces of it, is it's still not clear to me what the problem is we're trying to solve. And Hadassah talked about it a little bit, everybody talked a little bit about more examples that say, because we, in your view, our policies aren't clear enough and our enforcement, content moderation isn't as robust as it could be, these are the things that have happened that either have hurt the company or have hurt individuals' rights or have hurt individuals such that they don't want to use it anymore. And I think more examples of that and a clear statement of what the problems we're trying to solve have been helpful to me. Competitive information is always good. I mean, the board of directors of TikTok, of course, we want to know what Alphabet / Google / YouTube / Instagram, all of Facebook, all of our competitors are doing. So the more that you can give us that information and maybe throw a little bit of pressure, peer pressure that way on us, I think it's helpful. But well done, thank you.
Tomorrow, you won't be using slides, and because of that, and that fact plus the fact that you're going to be focusing in on the ethics dimension and not so much the financial and legal dimension, means that it would be a good thing for you to emphasize those aspects of ethics that are pertinent to your case. That is to say, it would be useful if you could, in terms of the censorship issue versus free expression, talk about human rights and and talk about the importance of human dignity and not use ethical categories, not technical ethical categories. You don't have to go into technical philosophical jargon, but it sounds to me like part of the passion behind your case here is that you want to avoid trampling on human rights, and that liberty is one of those. Free speech is one of those rights. Uh, and you want to avoid authoritarianism or some form of censorship. And the categories of ethics, of fairness, of human dignity, of human rights, of human benefits, human costs, uh, our duty to our fellow citizens. Those are that's the language of ethics, and I think that just invoking the Santa Clara principles is not going to click until you get at the ethics behind the Santa Clara principles, which is I think something that you can do very easily given the case that you presented, and it will be more recognizable as the ethical background of your presentation. That's just a suggestion. Any other thoughts about tomorrow? Do you have questions of us?
Would you all be the same judges tomorrow, or would it be the new set of judges?
You will definitely not have us as your judges in the 10-minute or the 90-second. That's why we can get away with coaching you a little bit for tomorrow. It won't be in front of us that you'll be doing those competitions, and that's by design. My understanding is the way that it will unfold tomorrow is that you'll each do with the other teams in your divisions, you'll do your 10-minute presentations first, and then you'll do your 90-second presentations, and there will be two Uber judges who will give comments on both. But one of the Uber judges will do the call on the 10-minute, and the other Uber judge will do the call on the 90-second.